Have you had this happen to you? You wake up one day after 3, 4, 10, 23, or maybe 30 years of working in a place, and you realize that you have no choice but to stay there. They've got you. They own you. They own your work. Yeah, no. While it may feel like they own you and that your work is captured and it belongs to them, it's not true. In this episode, you'll learn the why and how of building a work portfolio so you can liberate your work and never have to feel captured again. Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your Reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create. I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert in investing, but I know a thing or two about the general best practice rules that get doled out to the masses. These are that you're supposed to start it early, do it consistently, and diversify your work portfolio because the market can be volatile in the short term, but evens out in the long term. This works as a great parallel for how we need to think about our work, liberating our work, and building a work portfolio. In episode 56, I had Suita Kamara on to talk about this idea of liberating your work, what it is, what it isn't, and why it might be very important. Today, we're going to dig deeper into the how. To clarify what this idea is, let me clarify what it's not. Suita said it best. Liberating your work is not about liberating yourself from your job. If you want to do that, that's fine, but it's something different from what I'm talking about here. It's not about liberating yourself from a job, but liberating your work from your employer. This looks like being mission-minded in your work, having a bigger picture view of your work, like what Samuel and I talked about in episode 32, why you should work your way out of your job. This means not seeing your work being ultimately something that belongs to and is owned by your job or your career, but seeing your work as what you create, all the things you create, and seeing these things you create as things that you always own and that you're always responsible for stewarding. These are the things that you create through your gifts. They may be things you create on your job or as part of your career, but they're still yours. When you have this view of your work as what you create, then you'll be able to get paid from different sources, not just a single employer. That's because your view of your work will be different and you won't see it as something that has to belong to or be owned by a single employer. You won't see yourself as needing to have a job or a career as a prerequisite before you can use your gifts to create and get paid for what you create. You'll know that you're always allowed to get paid for what you create, whether there's a single employer that's paying you to do it or not. You'll know that what you create has great value and you can get paid by many sources for it. Being paid by others for what you create is being paid to be yourself. That's right. Being paid to be yourself isn't being paid to lay around on a beach and drink a cocktail. That's not what I mean about being paid to be yourself. It's not about being paid for leisure. Being paid to be yourself is being paid for what you create instead of being paid to just fulfill a job description whipped up in an HR department. And because most HR departments aren't sitting around whipping up job descriptions based on your own gifts, you have to be the person in charge of and driving this effort to get paid to be yourself. You're the one who has to take charge and make it happen. The type of relationship you need to have with your job and with your employer needs to be the opposite of what you're going into and what you're going for in romantic relationships. I know. Many of you are treating your jobs and your employers like your one true boo, like a marriage that's for life, but you need to cut it out. The days of being loyal to one employer like you made vows at an altar are over. It's time to be disloyal, y'all. When it comes to how you make your money from what you create, having a single source needs to be a no-no. Molly, you're in danger, girl, if all you have is one source of income. Even if it's just a little bit, even if you're just making $100 on the side, that's a win. Start building that muscle. Liberate your work. Make money from other places. Become known for your expertise in other places and spaces. Become known for what you create in other spaces. Become wanted and highly sought after by many, many, many others. That's the dream. Freedom. To no longer be financially, but especially to no longer be emotionally captured by a single organization. That means that if they ever think about dropping you, you have a brand, you have a mission that's bigger than your current role, and you are emotionally, mentally, and financially able to replace or pull in other income very quickly. And I talk about the mental and emotional ability because that is legit the toughest part for people. It's the most important because the emotional impact of having a job with one employer for any amount of time beyond a year is real. The emotional impact is you get too invested, too attached. You can lose sight, you can get tunnel vision, and you can start to think, this is the only one that wants me, and this is the best I can do. We get emotionally wedded to our jobs because we're convinced that they are the source because they're paying for our skills. But we forget that they're not just giving us money, out of a free, generous heart. It's a transaction. They're paying for our skills, and we've got skills. But in our obsession with jobs and employers, we can focus so much on our skills, those things we get trained and certified in the course of our careers, that we neglect to also invest in and use our gifts, our natural strengths. We forget to also use our gifts and what we create with them to our advantage. And it's time to stop doing that, and it's time to liberate our work. And we do that by building and diversifying our work portfolio. Let's get to it. First, I want you to get a pen and paper because what we're going to do is map out your work portfolio. So later you can gather the materials and the things you need to build it. But first, we'll map it out. To start, you need to know what your work portfolio is and what it isn't. It's not your resume and all the jobs you've ever done and held. It's not even all the tasks you've done and all the jobs that you've ever held. Your work portfolio is very specific. It's this. It's the body of work that makes up all the things you have and want to continue creating. That's it. It's not even everything you've created before, because if you've created something before and you don't want to continue creating it, then you don't need it in your work portfolio. Because once you share your work portfolio and someone is oohing and ahhing over it, you don't want them oohing and ahhing over things you don't want them to ask you to do again. It's like keeping things on your menu at a restaurant when you know full well you're not going to go back and whip it up in the kitchen and bring it out. If it's no longer on the menu, then don't include it on the menu. If you don't want to serve it, don't put it on the menu. Okay, so we're clear. Your work portfolio is made up of the things you've created that you want to continue creating. And the first place we're going to go looking is in your resume because it's also the easiest place. I showed you how to do this in episode 4, a resume excavation to clarify your unique contribution with Nico. Now, this is where you might have a rude awakening. When you go back to your resume to highlight all the things you've created, you may come up with 10 things, or maybe just 1 or 2 things. But then when you lay over that question, things you want to create again, the answer may be only 1 thing. Or nothing. And that's fine. This is critical information that we need, so don't worry about it. It's information, no judgment. Now you may be thinking, how is this following the principle to diversify one's portfolio if we're just focused on exactly the things we want to create more of? Shouldn't we be diversifying that? Great question, my creating maven. You're right. We do want to diversify, but it's not in this area. We want to diversify the places and spaces we take our work portfolio to get income. The places and spaces we go to get paid to be ourselves, to get paid for the things we create with our gifts. We want to diversify that so that we are pulling from more than one source and more than one type of source. We want to diversify our sources, yes, but not spread ourselves thin over an endless list of options of what we can create. No, not that. So that's where we want to focus. I hope that's clear. We want to diversify the places, but not necessarily diversify the type of work. We want to get very focused on the type of things we want to create. So that's our first step. 1, identify what we've created that we want to create more of. Now, even though you're looking for this in your resume, you don't have to limit it to your resume and things that you've created on jobs. Include all the ways and areas you've created, including volunteer, board work, academic, internships, or community work. Anything in the realm of your world that you've created. It doesn't have to be limited to things you've created as part of a specific job or a career role. As I said, this may be a rude awakening, and you may realize you've been underinvesting in this area. You may realize you've been underinvesting in creating things that you want to create more of, but that's okay because all of that changes today. 2, clarify what the results were and the impact of what you created on those who you served with it, and get testimonials for it. This is something that C.R.E.A.T.E touched on in episode 56. And this is where you need to go back and talk to people, or if you can't get to them, review old feedback forms, surveys, or kudos notes that's related to only the things that you've identified in number 1, right? The things that you've created that you want to create more of. This is your proof of concept. This is proof that you've created something that was valuable and you have the exact language to know how and why it was valuable from the people who benefited from it. That's what you'll get from them, the exact language. And 3, you want to collect any materials or documentation of the things you created that you can put into an actual physical or digital portfolio. This will make it easy for you to access them when you're doing number 5. But first, number 4, make a list of places and spaces you'd like to create more of what you create with. Maybe this is other organizations or individuals you want to partner with or community groups, whatever it is. Think about the partners or spaces you'd like to be able to say later on that you created your thing, whatever your thing is, with this group and in this space. This is where you diversify your portfolio. Finding other places and spaces to offer in service, paid or free, what you create with your gifts. And 5, email your existing network, letting them know that you are open for business. Let them know you're looking for more opportunities, and these can be paid or free opportunities. It's up to you. You're looking for more opportunities to create more of what you do and create more of what you've got in your portfolio. Let them know the types of people, the groups or organizations you're interested in doing this with. And if you already know they have a connection with one of those spaces or places that you want to partner with, then ask them to make a warm introduction. And 6, go for it. Assess and research what you can get on the market for what you've already created and offer your service to another place other than your single existing employer. Offer it as a test, not just to test them, but to test yourself and prove to yourself that this can be done. You can do this. You can liberate your work and diversify your work portfolio. This is how you can build a bridge to your next major opportunity. And it may be an opportunity that is a whole other job or not. You may never leave your current employer, which is your choice and just fine. But don't leave your work stuck with them and only generating income for you from that one spot. Don't do that. 7, once you've offered what you create and want to create more of in another place, get your documents, your materials, and your testimonials from that experience and load it into your folder along with your other things that you've created and that you want to create more of. And then do it again. Do this whole thing again and again and again, and keep charging if you already are and exploring the market and raising your rates. And if you're not charging at first, consider charging and just see what that starts to look and feel like. Take it step by step. Now, I want to say something for those of you who are getting yourself worked up and stuck. This applies to you whether or not you can figure out your price point and how much you want to charge on the front end. Even if you don't know at first what to charge something. Even if you end up undercharging, you can learn and grow beyond and figure out how to charge more and better later. Or if you know you don't want to charge anything and this is just volunteer work for you, then fine. But still get out there and do this work of diversifying your portfolio and getting the exposure to other partners. Let other organizations and groups get a taste of your work. You've got to believe that you own and are responsible for your work in order to do this. So here are the steps again. 1, identify what you've created that you want to create more of. 2, clarify what the results and impact have been on others of what you have created in the past. 3, collect the materials or documents that are evidence or a showcase of these things. 4, make a list of the spaces and places you'd like to create more of your thing in and with. 5, Let your network know what these spaces and places are and ask them for their help making warm introduction if they get leads. 6, offer your thing when you get your new partner. Just do it. And 7, get feedback from your offer and learn from it so that you can do it again and again and again and again. This is how you'll start to move when you have a mind of a true creating maven, when you're starting to step by step liberate your work from your single employer. This is what liberating your work is about. It's not necessarily about liberating yourself from having a job at all. It's more than that. It's about liberating your work from that single employer. It's about thinking about your work as what you create and having a sense of ownership and responsibility for what you create. It's about being more nimble in the marketplace because you know at any moment you are emotionally, mentally, and financially able to move and pivot towards not just one, but all the places and spaces that will pay you for what you create. All the places and spaces that will pay you to be you. So my creating maven, how nimble do you feel? How ready are you to be referable and portable? How focused are you on fulfilling your mission, which is bigger than your job or career? Are you ready to liberate your work in order to do this? I certainly hope so. Here's the next step. It's your first step. Write down those things that you have created that you want to create more of. And if the list is empty or too short for your liking, write this down. What do you want to create? And sit with it for a couple of days, just imagining what it will be like. Sit with it for a little bit before you move on to the rest of the steps I shared with you to build your work portfolio. Once you've written it down, share this episode with someone who you know will help keep you accountable for continuing with these steps, and tell them the thing you've written down and that you'd like to create. Invite them to ask you about it again as you continue on this journey. This is how we make things happen, my creating maven. I'm so excited for you. Liberate that work. Come on. See you soon, creating maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?